Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm Simona Nicole, host of the show, mindset coach, and motivational speaker. I've made it my mission to help you get unstuck, shift your mindset, and understand your worth to help you live your most purposeful life. Each week, I will bring you an idea, guest, or a positive thought that will leave you inspired and empowered to win your life. We decide the stories we tell ourselves and where we invest our energy. I'm so grateful you popped in. Now let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm really excited for this guest today. I say the same thing over and over on every single episode because I'm just so excited about the amazing people that I get to talk to all the time. But today we have Angie Robertson, and she is originally from Louisiana. She has a Juris Doctor and Bachelor of Civil Law from the Hebert Law Center at Louisiana State University. She's a senior coach at Handel Group Life Coaching, and she works one-on-one with clients and presents the Handel Method at local events. She loves being a part of spreading the reach of the method and has been learning from and using it since becoming a client in 2008. Angie is passionate about helping people close the gap between their dreams and their current realities. And as a Handel Group client, she herself discovered her dream of using her law degree to help nonprofits, and which is something she still does in her spare time. She also found her dream of helping people fulfill their career and life dreams and loves doing that as part of the Handel Group. Angie is happily married and lives in Dallas, Texas with her husband and two daughters and Dachshund. Oh my gosh, you have a dog too?
You have a little dachshund.
Oh, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. That is so cute. I'm so excited to talk to you today, Angie, and I'm so excited to dive in more about you. But first, I'm so just curious about, the journey that sort of brought you to where you are, and in this space, law to coaching seems like it would be a far shift, but it also kind of isn't at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, I have to correct your French because I am from Louisiana. It's Paul M. Hebert, it's not. You pronounce it the way it looks, but so yeah. Okay. I started. Really the journey for coaching was because I was a disgruntled lawyer and I wanted help for myself. And so I loved the firm that I was working at, but there was just this pull of I should be doing something more. I should be doing something more. And this goes back beyond being just a disgruntled lawyer to how I actually even went to law school, which was kind of not with much thought. I kind of just quote unquote ended up there, through a series of events. But when I finally got to the Handel Group, which I know we're going to talk more about, that was when I really started to put some deliberate designing to what exactly do I want to do with my life.
Wow.
And yeah, we can talk more about that, but that's just a little brief intro of how I got here. From lawyers to coach.
That's incredible. And have you always felt, so you said the pull of wanting more for your life has always been something that's been present for you. And it's really funny that you say that because I've sort of always felt the same way about myself and kind of ignored it for so many years until finally it just kind of smacks you in the face and you just really can't ignore it anymore, Did that kind of same thing happen for you?
Yeah. So, I've always been a person who is an analytical type. Right. So I'm always constantly thinking beyond what I'm doing, which made me a good lawyer, and a good law student, because that's what we're trained in. But, there was the feeling that something was missing that kept coming up for me. Something's missing, which led me to figure out okay, what does that mean? What I kept having experiences okay, when I'm in law school, I'll finally be happy. Or, okay, then after law school, it's okay, when I have a job, I'll finally be happy. Okay, when I leave that job and I go into this other job, I'll finally be happy. So the absence of something was really the conversation I was in with myself. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. It makes perfect sense. And so how did you sort of figure out don't know if I'm phrasing this properly, but, you know, always searching for the next thing and always wanting to do the more. And like, you know, I'll be happy when. At what point did that conversation change with yourself, and how did it change?
So as I mentioned, I called the Handel Group. So
Okay.
I left my big firm job, and I actually had always said, listen, if I go work in-house with a company, I'll finally be happy. Like that was the latest iteration of that, right?
Yeah.
And so then I leave my firm job and I go in-house, and I'm like, oh, I'm still doing the same thing, feeling the same lack of something. And so I Googled career coaching. I actually started this research project while I was still at my old firm. I would Google career coaches because I remember I was sitting in my office, and I found the Handel Group because, you know, as a lawyer, I'm like skeptical. I was like, what is this coaching thing? And Handel Group had a great resume. This is 11 years ago. And I found them because of an article somehow, you know, through Yahoo or Google, whatever I was using at the time, a story that they were working at MIT with students at MIT. And I thought, okay, wait, if MIT is letting these people come in here and teach this course called Designing Your Life, then, you know, I want to hear what that's all about. And so through the process, the very first thing that we still do to this day with clients is have clients work on what their dreams are.
Mm.
And that wasn't an easy endeavor at first, because the truth is we stopped dreaming, you know, and then
that's a good point.
Quote unquote end up wherever you are. Like I ended up in law school and ended up in my job. But then the first thing we ask people is like, okay, take a step back. And if you could have anything, what would that be? That was a new way of asking that question, you know, and then that really had me tap into what I really wanted. And, you know, some common themes emerged, at least in the career space, like I wanted to help people. I really wanted to use my training and my analytics for good. And I wanted to help people accomplish their missions. Now, I'll tell you, when I was writing my dream with my coach at the time, I had law as, you know, a thing that I was going to be doing all of that stuff within, which is how I moved into the nonprofit sector. But my coach said at the time, like, listen, if you take law out of all that, that kind of sounds like coaching.
Oh, you know, stop. And so you're like, really?
I was like, wait, what? And it is true. And that is, so then I really started looking at, okay, well, maybe I don't actually want to do law full time. You know, what else could fit in this description of what I want?
I love that. And, you know, given your background, because law is a pretty, I'm so fascinated by the law, to be honest. This is going to sound really ridiculous, but I love the show Suits. And I'm always watching and I'm like, oh, is that what it's really like? And of course it's not. I know that it's not. But, you know, it's this industry that's almost like glamorized in a sense, if that makes any sense, because the job is just, when you watch shows about it on TV, it just looks so incredible. And so do you find, I don't really know how that relates to this, but my question to you is, do you find that you in the beginning maybe attracted people who were similar to you, that were in, you know, a very strong field and like missing that part of, you know, who they are?
In becoming a lawyer, becoming a coach?
In becoming a coach.
So my mission really is to help lawyers in particular, because I was telling someone this story today. Okay. And I think this will answer your question. First, let me just say, I love the fact that you say that the law is glamorized, because I felt so like, as a lawyer, sometimes I didn't even want to say, oh, I'm a lawyer, because sometimes people had a negative reaction, like, oh, I hate a lawyer, or what, you know, something like that, a strong reaction. But so back to what I was talking to someone about today was I remember in one of my first classes in law school, the question was asked, like, why are you here? And the options were, who didn't get into med school? And some people raised their hand. Who didn't get into another grad school program? And some people raised their hand. And it was like, who didn't know what else they should do? People raised their hand. And who wants to be a lawyer? And some people raised their hand, but the vast majority, like, were there kind of by default.
Yeah.
You know? So I take that, and, I know how I was, which I really loved school and it sounded like a great profession. I'm embarrassed, but it's honest. I really didn't know what lawyers did when I went to law school. Like,
Oh my gosh.
I was like, wait, is this really what I'll be doing?
I'm here. Like,
not what you see on TV, right?
No.
It's not everyone is in the courtroom doing all that exciting stuff. There's a lot of reading and document reviews and, a lot of research and
articling. I know that. Articling.
Yeah. And so I think that especially with lawyers, so like, as I was saying, lawyers have a special place in my heart. I think that there can be something missing with lawyers. And so one of my missions is to really like tap into the lawyer community, make sure people are happy, make sure they're being, they're fulfilled. We think that career is just one of 12 areas of your life at Handel Group.
Yeah. And
so, we got to attend to the other areas. So anyway,
awesome.
I love lawyers.
They're all important though, all those areas. And, it's interesting because it's like nowadays you have a lot of people who are doing different things, a lot of people coaching and teaching and courses and all that kind of stuff. And it's nice that the niche of people that you love to work with, or that you might feel the strongest connection with, because oftentimes we tend to coach like a past version of us, right? Like that just kind of tends to
be current.
I like that. That would be a challenge. Yeah. That's awesome.
It's, that can be the most, it's like, I was just dealing with that thing this morning.
Yeah. You're like, you sound very familiar to me. Right. I feel like I know that problem. What did the transition from law, because I know you still work, nonprofit and you're a lawyer nonprofit. But what was the transition from being a lawyer as your full-time to being a coach as a full-time?
Yeah, it was like a sliding scale, I would say is the best way to describe it. And to be clear, so I work full-time for the Handel Group now. Like I'm all in. It took a little while for me to get all the way over there. I was still kind of like doing half and half for a long time, but it's been about, I think, over 2 years or so that I'm full-time. And then I really do, the nonprofit stuff is kind of my side pet project stuff to keep my law license active, and just because I also see it as a way to give back too in community and contribution. But it really was like, taking a little bit of a step back in law and a little bit of step forward in coaching until, I know not everybody's going to see my picture here, but it was like, I started a lot of coaching or a lot of law and a little bit of coaching. And then over time, it just kind of flip-flopped. Yeah. And now we do a little bit of law and a lot of coaching. And, along the way, I wasn't perfect at both. There were times when I like neglected the coaching stuff that I was doing. And then times when I really sucked at being a lawyer just because I was really trying to figure out how to do both. Yeah. So it was like trial and error, but also with a design to eventually transition. And then I was really, my ego mostly was holding on to, you're a lawyer, and I really like, because life coaching sounded like a little bit like, what's that? A little hokey. And so there was like that last bit of me that didn't want to, jump with both feet into the pool, the coaching pool. But then when I finally did it, it was like a relief. It was like, okay, I really am thriving over here and happy.
Oh God, I love that so much. I always keep like a pen and paper right beside me, because as people are talking, I just get so many like ideas and questions, and I have so many things that I want to ask you. So I totally relate though on the slow kind of tipping scale of balancing it out, because especially when you have, in your case, like you have a family, it's not always it's not always the available option to just be like, no, I'm just going to quit this now and I'm going to go and start this. I mean, it's easier if you don't have, if you don't have a family, if you don't have obligations, like that kind of stuff is so much easier. But I even think of like, pay your mortgage, pay your rent, like, you got to have something coming in, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I said I love lawyers. I love helping lawyers. I get a lot of people who are in career transitions because that's literally what I went through as part of my being a client with Handel Group. And that's like, you have to have a plan. We're not like, okay, now go quit your job because you just on the street. It's like, no, we also have to be realistic. You do have to pay your bills. We want you to be responsible. But we're also, and I also like push my people. Okay, are you sure you can't figure that thing out? So we want you to be smart, but we also want you to challenge yourself, right? And go for the dream too, which, as I was mentioning, like I had a lot of fear in making the transition. And I think, that's human nature.
It absolutely is. And we always tend to default to our ego self and always, step into the fear first. And like, I don't know, I think of it like this for the things that I do in my life. It's like, our mind is very often like, no, this is the scary thing. Like, we don't do this. We've never done this before. Like, this is unknown territory. We would never do this. And then you kind of tell yourself this story, right? And this continuous story of why you should never do something. And then you never end up doing it, because you've talked yourself out of it 100 times until it's like smacking you in the face and you're like, hello, this is where your life is supposed to go. Anyway, I think it's really crazy.
Yeah.
So based off of that, is there like a common theme that you've seen in the people that you help and the people you coach, that prevents them from closing the gap between the dream that they want and their reality?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about it, which is fear, right?
Yeah.
That is again, like human nature. So for me, it really is like fear of, is this going to work? Like, and if it doesn't, the disappointment and embarrassment and whatever we do with not succeeding. I think if I really had to summarize it, I think it's fear. I think it's scary to tell the truth, right? It's scary to tell the truth about what you want, about when something's not working for you. So one of my missions, and it's a mission I come by honestly, because it's one that I'm always working on, is being able to tell the truth, like having the freedom to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And understanding the ways in which you talk yourself out of telling the truth, AKA lying. Right?
Lying to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. To yourself, to other people, not even really being, in touch with the fact that you're lying, so I think that's the biggest thing. And when I talk about coaching, on the one hand, we get people to identify their dreams. And on the other hand, they come up with a plan. And then, wow, isn't that simple? Like, we got your goal, got your plan, go execute, you're going to have your result. But then not so simple, right? Because what's in the way is all that stuff in the middle, which is, I think, a lot of fear. And it comes out in all these different ways.
Exactly. Oh, that's such a good point. I really love that you said that. And especially the part about freedom of telling the truth. It's one thing to sort of lie to ourselves or reframe. It's one thing to tell ourselves the truth, but then it's a whole other thing telling the people that we love the truth about us that people might not necessarily agree with.
Totally. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
How would you encourage someone who might be experiencing this to sort of take that ego part of them and to be able to feel safe enough to tell the people they love their truth?
Yeah. So it's baby steps, right? Like, you start by just telling some little truth, that you wouldn't normally tell. You go and you experience how good it actually feels to tell the truth, and how, oh wait, that person, didn't bite me, they're still my friend, they're still, there. So you get to get someone's reaction to your truth. And I'm saying, like, really on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest thing you've ever told anyone, you want to start with like a 2, right? And then you work your way up and you exercise that muscle and you create the evidence that telling the truth actually feels good and, is like the preferred thing to do.
Yeah.
But like, let me be clear. To this day, we have a tool where you design out hard conversations. We literally write the script out. We go through the coaching process, and I mean, I still do that with hard conversations. We call them hard conversations. But like asterisk, any conversation that you're not having freely falls under this category. And so it even, you know, with a lot of practice, like you're still going to have all your inner dialogue, how you talk yourself out of having those conversations. But then the more you do it, the more you can start to remind yourself, oh wait, remember the time that I did tell the truth and it felt so good. I mean, I can literally right now go back in my mind to when I told my husband, I really want to do this coach training program. And I was like so scared to tell him. And I was like, you know, almost didn't tell him, right?
Oh my gosh.
And that's just one of a series of conversations that I've had with him over time, which is like, no, of course I'm going to tell him. He's supportive, or it's a great conversation, or we figure it out. But if you never say that, then you get to go on thinking that the people won't support you or love you or all of that stuff. So anyway, this is like a really long answer to your question, which is,
oh, I love it.
Build the muscle.
I love that so much. And as a side note, I'm really curious, what was your husband's reaction like when you first told him?
I mean, it's such a joke because I act like he's not going to say yes, right? Right? He was like, so at the time, it was like an investment of money and my time. And it really was like okay, wait, I really am like kind of diverting off of the lawyer path into potentially something else. But he's, you know, he's great. I really appreciate how he's always supportive of me and what makes me happy. You know, like I asked him recently, and it's so funny, like this is like over 10 years ago, I'm like, about 10 years ago, can I do this training program? What do you think? And he was like, if this makes you happy, like, yes, let's figure it out. And then like literally earlier this week, I got a note from work about going out of town to do this workshop at this location that I'm really pumped up about. And I was like, okay, I need to ask him. And I got the same like butterflies, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I thought.
What if he says no?
Yeah, exactly, right? But he's like, well, of course, like whatever, it's great, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, he's like, it's your job, like why not?
And he supported me. I went to Bali for 9 days in September, and which was a dream to go and lead a retreat there. And
wow,
this is all to wrap it all up, it's a great example of how like I've had conversation after conversation after conversation with him, and literally like right when the words are about to come out my mouth, I get all the same fear again, right? Of like, should I ask? What if he says no? All that stuff.
And it's really funny because it's like, just judging by what you're saying, of course, I have no idea what your conversations look like, but just judging by what you're saying, it seems like he pretty much would never say no. You know what I mean? And so has he said no?
No, well, so
depends.
I have had to come up with my own like awesome boundaries around work, because the truth is my bad personality traits, like my family can suffer because of my bad personality traits. So like, for example, I really was like having coaching calls at times that were not convenient for my family and didn't really honor like the dream of who I wanted to be as a mom and as a wife. And I would say yes to those. And then they would be like, hey, wait, how about us over here? And so we've had to have the conversations around the boundaries and the things that he, the requests that he's made about work. And, so, I don't want to say he's going to say yes to everything, but it really is, I've had to learn to really honor our relationship. And then it's also been a give and take. Like I also can't on the other side be a total jerk whenever he asks to do whatever he wants to do, right?
True.
Which I've been known to do. Right? And had to on. So it all lives within a design of what. And when we coach in love, which by the way, couples are another of my favorite people to coach. Yeah. It's being love as a verb, that we teach love as a verb. caring about someone else's experience as much as your own. And then when I put myself in that, that's one thing that he's amazing at. And he's got a great lineage of his parents really, love is a verb, like you take care of people. And I tend to be more selfish, so in communicating and really like doing the asks of the things that you want and then connecting it to your dream, it's hard to say no when you have all of that working for you.
That's really, really good. I really like that. And it sort of leads into my next question for you in terms of designing your dreams or designing your life. What does that process look like? Like, what can you take us through a little bit of what designing your dreams are?
Yeah. So this is one of the first things that we teach people, which is really awesome. And if you haven't done it, try it. Okay. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to like write a dream. So number one, at Handel Group, we've split life up into 12 areas, right? And we've done that sort of these are my words, but it helps life be more manageable, right? Instead of like, write a dream for your life. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh,
where do I start? Yeah.
Exactly. So, some examples of some common things that people come to work on are like career, body, love, community and contribution, money, your home, so that's like 5, right? So what you want to do is you want to think of one of the areas. So like, do you want to work on one?
Yeah.
Okay. Which area?
Ooh. Okay. Oh, this is so fun. Okay. I don't know. Let's go career.
Okay. So now I want you to think about your career, and then I want you to think 1 year out. Okay. So the reason we say 1 year out is because we want it to be like a stretch, but doable. So like a year out is an accessible amount of time, but it's going to take something to get you from today to a year out. Right. So it's a manageable chunk. So in a year from now, I want you to think about like if you had your dream, what would it look like?
Ooh, okay.
So like and I'm going to write some things down now too. So like, tell me some things that you would have or would have happened to you over the course of the year with career.
Okay. So I'm in the process of starting my own business and just launched an online course. I coach clients one-on-one. And so I would love in a year to have honestly, I would love to, it's hard. I would really, really, really love to have my business full-time.
So you're doing something else right now?
Yes. Yeah. I work in corporate.
Okay, great. Okay, got it. So let me stop you with these. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
So now you want to write the dream as if it already happened. Okay. So your dream for your career 1 year out would sound something like, I am so excited to do my coaching practice full time. Right? Like, so that I'm just going to pause at that statement. So it's like, I'm saying I'm doing it full time, right? Okay. I am there, right? Either the present or like it already happened if it needed to happen in that year. Okay. So here the difference between a statement that's like, I'm so excited, I'm running my business full time, and compared to a statement that's like, I would be really happy in a year if I would be running my business full time.
Gotcha.
Do you see the difference?
Oh yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, like the first version is like, wait, I'm way more excited about that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's because it feels like you're living it.
Exactly. So we're really starting to get you to think like a person who already has your dream, right? And like tap into your heart and what you really want. So let's do one more. So, because if you're doing career, it's really important to also address like how you're getting paid. And so you don't have to say it now, or you can if you want, but you'd want to include like how much money you're making. right?
True.
Or you'd want to include, I have a roster of 100 clients. I sold, 1,000 subscriptions to my online course and people are loving it. Or, I wrote a book, or I've been on X number of podcasts, or you hear how and now you said some of the pieces of what does running your business full time look like in the day to day. But again, you write it as if it already happened. Or
I want to quickly pause this interview and tell you about the Handel Group coaches that I've had the honor and privilege of bringing onto the Happiness Happens podcast. With every conversation and interview, I've learned something so impactful and so life-changing. Inner You Life is the online coaching course from Handel Group that gives you the tools to get yourself unstuck, wildly happy, and thriving where it matters most to you. Your relationship to yourself, career, love, body, money, time, and more. From wherever, whenever. Recommended by Hugh Jackman, Dr. Mark Hyman, Forrest Whitaker, Elena Brower, and hundreds more. Taught in MIT, Stanford School of Business, and 50-plus institutes of learning across the world. Visit inneryou.coach and use the code HappinessHappens at checkout for $75 off. Now, back to the episode.
I
love that. Okay, so once you do this and you write them all down, what do you do with it?
Yeah. So here's the truth. It's when you finally say what you really want, I'm going to give people a lot of credit, which is that the steps to get there sometimes are pretty clear, right?
Yeah.
Or if not all the steps, at least you can come up with a few things that would be smart things to do if you wanted to get to that place.
Yeah.
Right? And so you start with that. And you come up with what we call promises, which are actions that you're committing to that are, I like to call them, and we call them in service of your dreams.
Okay.
So I'm not going to get you to make a commitment to something that you are doing anyway, right? We're talking about the things that feel like a stretch, the things that you might need an extra buddy, or accountability buddy to make sure you did. For example, when I was going through and writing my own, and I had things where I really thought I wanted to be in nonprofit law, and I really, wanted to help people, my coach had me make a promise of how many hours per week I would research doing that job.
Oh.
Right? So how am I going to get this kind of a job? What do I need to learn? Those sorts of things. And then that wasn't something that I was normally doing in my life, right?
Yeah.
So I had to report into her, okay, how'd you do? Right? Or how did I do at the time? How did I do? And through a series of those kind of actions, I met a guy who was an attorney, a man who then I ended up working for a while. And he's the one who taught me what I needed to know in the nonprofit legal world.
Amazing.
Right? So if you think about your career dream,
yep.
Okay, what do you think is a good promise for you? What's something that you need to do that you're not currently doing that would help you move closer to your dream? And by the way, you're going to want your dream to be a paragraph, right?
Yeah.
So one sentence, but do you have any thoughts?
I definitely need to talk more about what I do.
Okay, that's a great one. Because,
yeah.
Okay, so about me, I had to make a promise that when people said, hey, what do you do? Guess what I always said?
You're a lawyer?
Yeah, exactly, right? I would not even talk about the coaching.
I'm a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer. I would never say anything about coaching. And then Lori Gerber, who's our head coach, was like, okay, wait a minute. You cannot answer that question without also including coaching. And at first it was I had to really be on myself, to make sure that I mentioned the coaching. And in my head, I had a theory that coaching sounded hokey. No one would be interested in it. People were way more interested in the law. And guess what I found out?
It was the opposite.
Nobody cares about lawyering. Everybody wants to know about coaching.
And they're like, wow, it's really funny, how timely this conversation is, because I literally just had this conversation today with someone. I was giving like a presentation about something, and I was sitting beside someone, and she was like, okay, like tell this person what you do. And so I, told her my laundry list of tasks that I do on a day-to-day and like that kind of thing. And she goes, no, but like tell her what else you do. And I was like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? And I don't know. I feel like sometimes there's like a time and a place for things, right? She's like, no, like your podcast, like tell her about those things. And I was like, okay, well, I have a podcast. It's called Happiness Happens. And I was like, and I'm a mindset coach, and I have a course, and I have like all these different things. I was like, wow, I was like, this is pretty crazy. Like,
yeah,
would have completely skipped over all of that because, you don't think people are wanting to hear it. But that conversation opened up like such a cool door where this person was telling me about all the stuff that they do. I was just like, it's just, you never know what somebody else is thinking. You really never know. And like we were talking about before, it's all comes down to fear. It just comes down to your ego self telling you that no one wants to hear about what you're doing.
Yeah. So a good promise for you would be, you might want to start by saying something like, I tell 3 new people a week about my podcast.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
Right. Then you could, we're all about like you exercise the muscle. Then it really could, maybe be every day you tell someone new, or in every conversation. Like eventually I couldn't get away with not mentioning coaching. Right. But again, there's a gradient, and so I love the name of your podcast because we're so action oriented, at Handel Group. And so the truth is, like, we want you to take some actions that get you closer to your dreams. So it's, you're making it happen, right?
Exactly.
You are making it happen.
Exactly.
It's happening.
It's not, it just happens. And it's funny because I get a lot of questions of like, how does happiness happen? And I don't know, like I sign my show off like this all the time, but it's kind of, been something that I live by now. And it literally happens when you're least expecting it. It totally does.
Yeah. But I'm going to argue with you a little bit and say, I think it's because you've done some things to put yourself in a position, right? You've done something that gets yourself to the place where it can happen. That's
100%. It's so true, because you have to be in the right mindset, and you have to be in the right space to even be able to recognize that you need something to happen to begin with, right? Because unfortunately, not everyone gets to see that in their lives, that that all of the amazing things that could, you have to be ready and willing and wanting to shift something to, if you're feeling like you're wanting more. Crazy.
Yeah. I'm telling you, telling the truth about things and just starting to say it. This is for anyone out there, right? And you in particular, that's been one of, I think, the most effective things. So like, for example, I had in my dream, I get to travel to teach in amazing locations. And it was in a dream of mine for a while. And then the truth was I wasn't doing anything about that one other than like it was in the dream. And so then I attached an action to it, which was I had to tell people, hey, I want to travel and teach this. And then I had a client who came to me and said, I'm starting a wellness travel company. Will you come with me to Bali? And I had to hurry up and say yes. Right? Because I couldn't talk myself out of how am I going to make that work? I have 2 kids. Where's Bali?
Where's
like, okay,
yes. Where am I going?
Right. By the way, then I really did have to figure out like, wait, how long is it going to take to get there? So
it's so long.
Yeah, but it was totally worth it. And, but that happened as a result of me saying, hey, by the way, I want to go to cool places and teach coaching, our coaching workshops. And it happens again in May. I'm going to Sedona with someone who's in training with us. She's a yoga teacher, and we are going to do a workshop, it's her retreat, and I'm teaching 2 workshops there. And Sedona's been on my list. I'm so excited to go. But like, I had to say, hey, I'd like to do some workshops. Like, so it started with me, and then people really, they hear that and they respond. And
yes.
So, yeah.
And you've also opened yourself up to it, and opened yourself up to, all of the things that can happen once you take that block away,
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I love that.
So your promise is what?
To tell 3 new people about my podcast every single week.
Okay, great. And then, so that's then how we manage it. And so my clients and I have a list of promises, and every week I report in on how I'm doing to my,
I love that.
who's my accountability buddy, and really the champion of my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's really how I look. I'm most effective as a coach when I'm really thinking about what I know that person wants.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I got to remind you of this, because we're all humans. And in the moment, we forget that we said we wanted that thing. Right?
Exactly. And you sort of breeze by it and you're like, yeah, I would just love to have that. And then you're like, and then as a coach, it's like, actually, let's just pull that one thing out that you kindly, kind of just like breezed over there and, pretend it wasn't.
You said you wanted to do this full time.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Okay. So check in with me in a year. Okay. No.
You should check it. You need a buddy. You need an accountability buddy who's going to hold you to your dream. Right?
Those are the best.
Yeah.
Those are the best. I've had a few over the last little bit, currently searching for one. So if someone wants to be my accountability buddy, by all means, I love it.
Look, are you doing Inner You, our digital coaching course?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, if just a plug, we have a digital coaching course. And the reason I'm asking is because within that, people who are in it can buddy up and be buddies.
That's really, really cool. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a promo code for the courses in the show notes of this episode, and there's also there's also like an ad in this episode as well, highlighting the same thing. So
you can get a buddy and interview. Look, you can find one in your life, but when you find a buddy, you're really giving them permission to call you out on your BS.
Exactly.
Right? And if you're someone's buddy, don't just believe all their excuses. Make sure you're like, well, hold up. You said you wanted this body. You said you wanted to lose 10 pounds. What's going on here? Like, you really, as a buddy and as someone else's buddy, and you giving someone permission to be your buddy, you're giving them permission to call you out. So
yes.
Look for that.
Yes. Oh, I love that a lot. It's really important because the accountability piece is really, really important. And would you say the accountability piece is like the key in getting your dreams from like stuck to start?
Yeah. I mean, we say that's where the rubber meets the road, is really the doing. Yeah. Right. But we call that the physical integrity piece, but it's personal integrity as we define it is really when you line up your dreams. I touch my chest right here because it's like your heart, right? It's like your dreams, your deepest desires with how you're talking to yourself, not listening to the fear, and then really what you're doing, right? So you're all of that, when it's in alignment, we say that's personal integrity, and you're going to feel happy, satisfied, and proud when you're in that alignment. You're not talking yourself out of things. You're really taking actions or dealing with the fact that you didn't, and you have your dream in mind, your ultimate goal in mind. And that's what keeps me coming back to the Handel Group.
Oh, I love it. And in terms of, someone who might be, going through their dreams and they have their goals and they're going through it, what one tip, if you have one, would you say to someone who's having a hard time, like, staying committed?
To the overall process or to a promise in particular?
I'd say to the overall. Well, I guess if it's an overall process, it might be because you're not in alignment with what you're doing. So then let's go with, a promise in particular.
Okay. I was really kind of baiting you because I wanted to tell you this thing, but then I'll answer the bigger question too. So we know that humans are not going to always keep their promises. And so that's why we have a companion tool called the consequence, right? So the way integrity works is you're saying, okay, I'm promising. So by the way, let me just pause and say the reason we call them promises is because if you think about it, we're really good at keeping promises to other people, right? But then like we blow ourselves off a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Right? You know, it's like, hey, I promised, you know, mom, I'd pick you up at the airport. And, you know, most people are not saying, I got really sucked into a Netflix show, and so I just decided to let you wait there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you think about our dreams, the gym or the, you know, the book you want to write or whatever, you're like, oh, I just had to watch the whole season. So we're calling them promises because we're really wanting to highlight that they are this action that you're making, this commitment that you're committing to for yourself in service of your dreams. And then the truth is, if you don't take that action, there's a consequence. If you do take the action, there's a consequence. Like consequences, both positive and negative. But we're saying, look, in the moment, our brains don't relate to, if I don't do this thing, I'll never have my dream, right? We're just like in the moment. I don't feel like making the phone call right now or going to the gym or whatever. So we say implement an artificial consequence
I like that.
to like serve as an interrupter to that, you know, that inner dialogue that's going to have you not keep your promise to yourself. So that's a really good trick. And that is something that we work on with our clients, is having a consequence for your promise. And here's the beauty of it. Yeah, the beauty of it is that if you pay your consequence, which we want to come up with funny consequences like, you know, throw money out the window, you know, wear a silly color lipstick, you know, take a cold shower, make a phone call you don't want to make, you know, those kind of things. You give up a vice like your wine or your chocolate or your Netflix or your Instagram. And then if you pay that consequence, you're still in integrity, because you said, if I didn't go to the gym 3 times a week, I wouldn't watch Netflix this week. And then if you don't go to the gym and you pay your consequence, you're in integrity with yourself because you're doing something about the fact that you blew yourself off.
Exactly. You're sticking to what you committed to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once you do that, so this is your answer to your other question. Once you do that, we say like, check in like every month. How am I doing? Like, am I getting closer to my dreams? And a lot of times, you know, you'll be surprised at the movement. If you identify, Lauren says that there's like 3 to 5 promises, like really key promises that are going to make a huge difference for people. And if you identify those, like, you're really going to see a lot of movement in your life and you're going to surprise yourself. Right. But you got to go do, you know, you got to go do something. And that's what we say is make promises and keep your consequences.
Oh, that's so important. And it's really, really true what you're saying. And, you know, to bounce off of that idea, it's like, we can do so much more than we give ourselves credit for. Like we can literally do whatever we want. And I think because we live in a society that tells us it needs to be a specific way, that a lot of the dreams that people have feel like they're not worthy of having those dreams, because how could they're just like, you know, I thought about this about myself for a long time. I was like, I'm just like a regular person. Why would I ever have a podcast? It's the best thing that I've ever done. You know what I mean? And it's like getting over that initial feeling of not being deserving or good enough, or being scared to start.
Totally. And, you know, the thing is that who came up with the first podcast? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but like that person took a chance, right?
Exactly.
Like, we just don't know. And I think you're totally right. We don't give ourselves credit. Number one, we don't give ourselves credit for what we're capable of. But then I think number 2 is we always assume that it's going to take a lot longer or be a lot harder or something, like we assume a lot of things that aren't necessarily true. And that was one of the great things that my coach did in the past and does now provide for me, is the question of like, yeah, but why not? Like, why does it have to be that way?
Yeah.
And what if it were not? And, you know, just to piggyback off of my question about or my comments about Bali, the minute I said yes, like how quickly that thing lined up.
Yes.
And how quickly my upcoming trip to Sedona lined up. It was crazy. Like, it was almost like, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be. Because it was so easy once the pieces were in place.
Yes. And it's really interesting that you say that, because I experienced something really similar lately. I was like, oh, I would love to, be on more of other people's podcasts and, share my thoughts and that kind of thing. And, randomly applied to like a couple and got them. And I was like, oh God, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready. Like I've done interviews before, but it's like, then you're, I don't know. My fear-based mind was kind of like, oh, are we ready for this? And I was like, well, here we are. Cause the opportunity presents, it comes knocking when you're ready for it,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Sometimes we don't think we're ready, but we just have to go for it.
And you're right on how fast things can come as soon as you sort of let down the walls, because the walls are what block you from not having what it is that you really want, right? But as soon as you let them down, you, just like you just said, you welcome all of this incredible abundance of things that you want in your life right to you.
Yeah, and or you figure out if it's what you really want. Like that's the other part. It's like, I'll use the Bali thing because we really had a conversation about it. It was like, do I really want to travel and do this? And it was like, okay, the only way is to go. And then after judge, okay, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. And the answer was yes, right? Yes, I do want to travel. And, it's, again, going back to my husband and my family, like it's all within the design of what I wanted to do with them for all the different areas of my life, but I would have, it would have remained a line in my dream that just kept bugging me until I went and figured it out. Like I did a marathon last year too.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome.
Congrats.
I felt, thank you. One of my biggest accomplishments ever. I mean, I'm really like super proud of myself. Wow. One of my fellow coaches did it with me. She dragged me along for part of the way.
That's amazing.
That was a line in my body dream. I did a marathon. I accomplished a marathon that like I just couldn't get out of my head. And so it was like, okay, go do something about that already. And then I could decide, do I ever want to do another one? Right now, I'm mostly no, but sometimes I think maybe another, but you have to go try stuff out to know if it's even a part of your dream too.
Oh, I love that so much. And, it can be a part of a small part of your dream that takes you to a different type of dream.
Exactly.
Right? You got to do the one dream to get to the next dream.
Exactly. Right. And that's why I say think in 1 year out, and why I love our process, because it evolves. My dreams 10 years ago looked very different from the ones today. Right. Yeah. So that's what I love about it, is then you just get to take inventory, and here's the kicker I found is that the more you dream and accomplish things, the bigger you will dream.
Yeah.
Because it's always going to be a little bit of a stretch. And so as you expand and prove to yourself that you can do it and figure it out and make it happen and all those things, you're a little bit braver and you do a little bit more, which is also fun.
That is amazing. And it's so true. You do so much more, like so much more when it's just, it blows my mind. The more that you do in your life, the more that you allow yourself to experience is everything. And you get to do these crazy experiences that you probably never would have imagined that you would have ever actually done. Sometimes our dreams just stay on paper and they don't actually get to see the light of day. We don't actually get to see and experience those dreams. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing you've accomplished? Like in an expansive kind of way, like that you were like, ooh, I got a little bit braver and I did this thing.
Honestly, actually starting my business and following through with it was a huge step for me, because I'd say probably back in like October of 2019, I had gone through a couple different like coaching programs, different coaches, that kind of thing. And I was like, I don't think that this is for me. I was like, I don't think that this is the path that I want to take. I think I'm just going to revert back and just, go back and like do my regular job and maybe not really do my podcast. Like it was just a bunch of things. And then it kind of kept coming back to me, and I was like, it's not an option. Like, you know what I mean? This is the path that I'm supposed to take. And so, let's try and figure it out again. And I did. And, I think just having, just exactly like what you were saying, having dreams and following through on them and really like allowing myself to step out of what I think that life should be and into, or sorry, what life is expected to be, and really stepping into like what it should be for you, what you want it to be for you, and what I wanted it to be for me was crazy. That's a long-winded answer, but
yeah, it's awesome because you really, you did something, outside of, I would say, your comfort zone. And then like, even when it sounds like it didn't work out totally the first, or not didn't work out, but like you had some doubts,
totally
thoughts, and then now you're like, wow. So you went from that to your dream that you said earlier, which is I'm doing this full time. Right?
Exactly. And it's funny because it's like back in October, I had launched something, it was okay. And all this, but I was never disappointed though. You know what I mean? Like I was never like upset that the thing wasn't, wildly successful, or that anything didn't come from it. You know what I mean? Like I was never upset about it. It was more of like I'm so grateful that this happened so that I could figure out what's the next thing that's supposed to happen from there. And I think that's huge and key in your perspective, because a lot of the times people will see failure and look at it and be like, well, I'm never going to be able to do anything. Look, things never happen for me. And if that's the story you're going to tell yourself, then you're right. It's never going to happen for you, because you have to tell yourself the story that if you want more, you deserve more, and you will have more, and whatever more looks like for you. So
yeah, your capacity is going to expand with like every kind of brave step or brave conversation you have.
Yes.
Which is so good. I mean, it's really, that's really fulfilling to experience and also to see in other people.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like I spent a lot of time wondering, what's the purpose of me being here? Like, what is the purpose of my life? Like, what am I supposed, all those kinds of questions. And a lot of what I found was that it's not so much about what is like the purpose, but how do you live while you're here? How do you actually get to live every single day and do what makes your soul happy? Like, is there anything better than that?
That sounds really good.
Doesn't it? So I have another question for you. And I know that time is flying by, and I know that, we need to wrap up, but I really want to ask you this. You have 2 kids. And so what does it mean to you to be able to be a mom that shows their kids that anything that they want in their life is possible and achievable? What do you think that this is going to do to help shape their lives and the way they think?
I think it's a real gift, and one that I'm not perfect at, right? But I'm committed to being in a real, truthful conversation with my kids about what they want and why they are doing things or not doing things, and just the patterns of who we are and how we can talk ourselves into and out of things. And so when you were talking about your purpose, I mean, really, that's mine, is to kind of take everything that I've learned through. I look at myself as like a self-experiment, right? And then to really, honor, it's our lineage. We talk a lot about lineage at Handel Group, and really honoring our lineage by like evolving it to one step further. And then my kids are already a step further than me in a lot of different things too, so learning from them. But I think it's a great conversation to be in. And, the thing that I'm concentrating on right now is this whole notion of telling the truth and like telling it without being afraid. And that's what I'm working on with them. And I think that if I can teach them to tell the truth while teaching myself to continue to tell the truth, and then also listen to other people's truth too, and really people can have their own opinions and their own truths, and we can respect it and we can honor it, and then we can make sure that we're like living in alignment with that. I think that's what life is about, to be honest. Like I do. So parenthood is a really fun journey. It really is. They keep me on my toes.
I can imagine. Oh, that's such a beautiful, beautiful, way to sort of wrap up this interview. But before we do, I am really curious. how can our listeners find you?
So go to handelgroup.com, Handel. That's the last name of our founder, her maiden name. And check us out. I'm on there. I'm also on Instagram at Angie_HG coach. But yeah, go check out what we're about.
Awesome. And before we go, can you, this is a question that I ask all of my guests when they come on the show, and it is, how could you create a little bit more happiness in your day every day starting today?
I think it's remind yourself of your dreams, really, and live in service of those. It could be like the littlest thing, like you make that one scary phone call, or you meditate, or you exercise, but really having actions that are aligned with what you want and how you want your life to be. It doesn't have to be that's the thing. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can really be a little thing that just keeps you in alignment. And I think there's just so much happiness that comes from that.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Angie, for being on the show today.
It was really fun. Thanks for playing and dreaming and
absolutely
coming up with a promise.
And I will hold myself to it. It's an amazing one. Thank you so much for doing that too. That was awesome. It's so fun to do that live, and it's it's super fun. I'm always down for stuff like that. But no, I really appreciate your time. And
check in with you. Your readers, or your listeners, your listeners should check in.
Yes. Okay. This is everyone's call to just check in on a weekly basis. Anyone want to just send me a message?
Right.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Of course. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to this week's episode. There are so many amazing things to pull out of this episode. So many things you can start doing right now today. And honestly, if you want to get your dreams on track, I think you know who to call. I don't know. Thank you so much for being here, and see you next week on the Happiness Happens podcast. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope these words have brought you inspiration, insight, and a bit more happiness. Please leave a comment or a review if this episode resonates with you. I would be so grateful. Until next time, remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.